Hey there. Welcome back to Lighten Up with Latisha. I am your host, Latisha, and we have to get in here real quick. We are talking about Tyler Perry's Beauty in Black, and we are recapping and reviewing the final two episodes of part one, which is episode 7 and 8. And we don't have a moment to spare, so we need to get up in here. Shout out to the Brooke Ashley. Okay, so this one is called Even Playing Field. And it starts off, remember when Uncle Norman, he popped out the folks and walked off. And then later on that night, he went out to the junkyard trying to find out about his wife. He talks to the guy who mentioned that his brother was also unalived in that situation. They made him clean up the mess, including his brother. But he did mention that there was a silver SUV out there previously, but it was taken along with all of the footages, right? So Uncle Norman shows him a picture of Jules and asks, has he ever seen that man? The man says he has not seen him and that he knows nothing of what went on. All the footage was gone, nothing was left. But then Uncle Norman also notices a picture that was sitting behind him of a man standing up against a yellow Lambo. And he says, was that picture taken recently? And the guy does not know, but he did reveal that the guy in the picture was his brother. Later on that night in the office, Roy comes in from his high and Mallory confronts him and tells him, go home. And he sits there, he's like, no, I'm not going home. And you know what I want to know? Why do people think that you run the company? So they commence to arguing back and forth, getting into a fight. They get physical. And Calvin busts in because Roy hemmed Mallory up. And next thing you know, Roy tries to fight Calvin, telling him to get up out of his face, telling him to go. And Calvin's standing there 10 toes down. He not moving. He not moving until Mallory tells him to move. Finally, Mallory is like, just go home, Calvin. It's fine. I'm okay. But he still didn't move because Roy said, you want to act up. Why did he try to fight him, child? But straight up air fist, he falls on the ground. Then Calvin starts feeding the man's ego. We know that you are the head of this company. We know that you're the brains behind everything. Remember I told you last week that they were pumping him up. I don't know why they do this. Is it simply because he's an heir? Because he certainly doesn't. He's not qualified to get that kind of ego stroking, but whatever. Finally, Mallory just tells Jillian to take him home. So, of course, Jillian, because she's trying to get back to Calvin, says gladly. So she leaves with Roy. Now, Charles is chilling. I thought this was so funny because he is literally laying on his stomach, right, with his feet up like a little kid. Varney walks in, confesses his love for Charles, and Charles is like, listen, I just want to go out. He literally acted like he was a prisoner in this bedroom and that he couldn't go out unless Varney said that he could. And I'm thinking like, sir, you're grown. But anyway, Charles is like, I don't want to stay in. I don't want to be closeted. If you don't want to be out and about with me, then I want to go out by myself. Varney explains to him that, listen, it's not like I'm not proud of the situation with you, but he can't just be out and loud, right, and proud. So he says, listen, you're a trust fund baby. You don't understand, but I just got to the point where I can pay my bills. So I really need to be able to play the game. And I don't think that your daddy would appreciate knowing that he said, oh, what, that you're messing with his son? It's like, no, that I'm messing with a man at all. So the conversation ends where basically Charles is like, okay, I really want to go out. Barney's like, go ahead and go out. He gets really giddy, grabs his coat, and he leaves out to go to the club. Meanwhile, at the club, Kimmy and Angel walk in to work. And Angel is approached by a dancer named Salvo, who is basically confirming their plans to rob Horace later on that night. Now, Body is in the back while Kimmy is getting ready. She's talking all crazy like she always does and says that they have a new girl coming in. And she kept emphasizing the fact that this new girl was 16 and that she kept trying to, like, it it was almost like she was trying to make Kimmy jealous about the situation. So she says, "Yeah, Kimmy, I'm gonna need you to break her in and show her the ropes. I can't wait for you to meet her. She's only 16." She kept emphasizing that. It's really kind of weird, but it sounds like it's going to be important later on. So then Jillian and Calvin have a conversation where they are going back and forth about Roy and Mallory. And in truth, they're both wrong. They both have been actually Jillian didn't actually mess with Roy, although she tried. And Calvin has some nerve to talk about Jillian when he has definitely been sleeping with Mallory. She even glimpsed back. She said, "Hey, I mean, let's not even talk about where we used to be or how it used to be." Now he says, "Oh, back when you were hoeing in Seattle." So we got a little glimpse of her, but she, okay, so she went to go explain it a little bit, but we didn't really quite catch a glimpse of what Calvin used to be or what he used to do. And honestly, although, these are not my favorite characters, even though I don't like them, I still would be interested in knowing what their backstories are. And so we know that Jillian basically did this is a come up for her if she used to walk the street in Seattle. But I want to know what Calvin did and where he even like how he got here in the first place. So again, they were arguing about sleeping with each other's bosses, and she vows to get even with him. Now, I don't know what that means, but she is very creepy to me, so I feel that she definitely will do something to him to try to get back at him. Now, Horace drives up to the club where he is offered VIP. He requests Kimmy and he goes around the back and he notices the yellow Lambo back there. Now, you know the yellow Lambo belongs to Charles. So that's probably part of the reason why he's like, okay, well, good, I don't have to go in because he knows his son is most likely in the club. He drives around back. And child, it is like hedonism part 4, 5, and 6 back there. Because folks are on top of the car, inside the car, under the car, up, just all over the place, just getting it in. It was a whole orgy back there. Okay. So anyway, he's waiting on Kimmy. Now, meanwhile, Charles is inside of the club and he tries to get Salvo, that same dancer I talked about earlier, to leave with him in his Lambo. They negotiating a deal or whatever, and he says, "Hey, just meet me in the bathroom." They sniffing that sugar in the bathroom, and again they start negotiating about how much he wanted to get started. Right? Salvo grabbed him roughly, threw him, tried to bend him over, whatever, to the point where Charles had to back up off me. No, I'm not trying to do this in the bathroom. I want you to come to my home so we can have a good time this evening. The reason why I brought up the negotiation is because, child, it was a little bit funny because he was like basically like, "How much do you think this is worth?" Let me tell you something. He had more than a handful that he was grabbing on, but the amount that he negotiated was like it seemed minimal for, I guess, his trouble. And my thought was, sir, don't you think enough of yourself to have your own prices? Let me not delve into this conversation because this is not my bailiwick. So moving on, they negotiate and have plans to meet up later, child. Anyway, at the office, Mallory tells Jillian to go home and she tells Calvin to come into the office where she kind of asks him about his education and even how he got this job. Of course, Jules, that's how he got it. He didn't go into it much further, but that's how he got the job. And she says, "Well, do you trust Jules? Because I don't trust him." And of course, Calvin is like, "Yes, I do trust him." And he starts to get all arrogant and frisky like he was before, talking all vulgar, which she does point out. She said, "You're really vulgar and arrogant." But the truth is, Mallory girl, this is your foreplay, and you know damn well you liking every moment of it, right? And by the time he left, finally, because she tried to fire him, she was all hot and bothered. But later on, Mallory and Calvin are at the elevators where she was like, "Hey, you need to take me home. I couldn't find somebody else. Jules couldn't find me anybody else." Josh, she didn't call Jules. But anyway, he decided, okay, let's go. So they get into the elevator. He's talking real crazy again, that foreplay. Then she starts talking crazy. Next thing you know, he stopped the elevator and they get it on right in the elevator. Now, back at the club, Delinda tells Kimmy that Horace is outside in the back, requesting VIP again. She goes to tell Angel that it's on tonight. So she goes out there to sit with Horace, and he decides he wants to meet at a different house this time. So he gave her the keys and gave her the instructions that she could just come right in. But he asked her, like, why do you live in that motel? And she said, like, she didn't answer that, but when he went to go give her money, she said, well, no matter what you give me, I just end up giving it back to you. And he's very confused by what she's saying. But you know what she's saying? She's like, basically, you are the boss, so you paying me just means I'm just gonna have to pay you back. But anyway, she goes back inside. They already made their arrangements for the evening. And when I tell you, why did she give all of that money over to Delinda and Body? I was thinking, like, girl, you didn't keep a little bit for yourself. She just has no plan. They want to get out of this life, but I don't really feel like, I feel like Angel always has a plan, even though it always goes awry. But I feel like Kimmy never truly has a real plan. I'm thinking, like, you can't just get out of the situation by osmosis. You're going to have to put some thought into it. But moving on, she gave the info to Angel for the plan for this evening for them to go ahead and rob Horace. Then we get to Norman, who gets a call from Jules. And Jules asked about, he said, yeah, I hear you needed a cleanup team earlier, from the ambulance situation from episode 6. But Jules was wondering, hey, why didn't you call me? And he said, somebody else took care of it. Alex took care of it for me. But at that time, he revealed that Ina passed away. Now, Jules fakes his sympathy, and Norman does not believe him. He even asked if he had it. All he was like, "Listen, I'm not even trying to hear what you're talking about in terms of your sympathy. Just tell me, have you found out who did this?" Jules tells him he has all the footage, and when they looked to see, they said that Mallory came home with her driver, which was a lie, and that her vehicle had no damage. That Roy came home later, that he was driving, but that his vehicle also had no damage. When Norman tried to blame Charles, Jules said no, Charles was at home all night. So Norman doesn't believe Jules. He hangs up on him. But this is what we find out in the conversation, that because Jules is trying to tell Norman basically, you can still trust me, and he said, no, you're in business with my brother. And he said, oh no, that security company is a front. So this is what we find out. See, Jules is not who he says he is. And all these people that don't trust him, rightfully so, they should not trust him. He is not trustworthy. And it sounds like at this point his plans are starting to fall apart. But meanwhile, back at the club, Charles shuts the club down, child. This fool is knocked out, sleep, and Delinda has to come and wake him up and has to have security come and throw him out. But when he wakes up, he's like, what time is it? Then he's feeling around for everything. Child, he has nothing. All his shit is gone. His watch is gone. His phone is gone. I think his keys are gone. But they kick him out of the club. Kimmy and Angel then leave in Salvo's car, because I guess Salvo's supposed to meet them there with some guys. And they pull up to this neighborhood home. Now, it is not as glamorous as Horace's big home, on the compound, but it's a nice little neighborhood home. Then they go in to meet Horace, and Horace and Angel go upstairs, and he tells him to take off his clothes. Meanwhile, Angel is texting nonstop to somebody. And then when he asked him to get undressed, he said, no, I just want us to take it slow. Angel's telling him this, right? I also want to take him slow, but he's still texting. Now, Horace mentions and notices, okay, who are you texting? You've been texting somebody for a minute. He says, oh, I'm just texting my baby mama, Yolanda. So Kimmy, in meanwhile, is in the kitchen, and then she gets a call, y'all, from Rain. That's right. Rain is alive. And when she picked it up in disbelief and she's talking and she's like, "Oh my gosh, Rain, is this really you?" She said, "Yeah, girl, where have you been? How come you haven't come to see me?" She said some man arranged for her to move to a nicer hospital and she's been there for a while and she's been waiting on Kimmy to come and see her. Now, in the background, you can see that there's some security cameras that come up. And when Kimmy goes to look at it, you can see that there are people coming to the house where they are. So Kimmy throws the phone down and runs upstairs. Then you cut to this yellow Lambo is coming down the private road. And then all of a sudden, it gets splattered with a bunch of bullets. And then all of a sudden, it blows up. Then the episode went off. So that was the end of episode 7. That yellow Lambo came up so many times, and we know that that car belongs to Charles. But was it Charles that blew up in that car? What do you think? I don't think it was Charles. I think it was probably Salvo or whoever stole his stuff. But we were looking to see, him and Salvo were supposed to get together that evening. So my thought is that, he would be the only person that would have known to go to the house, right? So I'm thinking it's probably Salvo who did this. And in that case, that's the one that got popped in the car. But we will see. Moving on. Episode 8 is called Unaliving or Chilling with a K, Karma. Okay, so at the house, remember I told you Kimmy runs upstairs. She busts in the room. She's trying to tell Horace, "Come on, we got to get out of here." She's telling Angel, "Call it off, call it off." Then all of a sudden, a bunch of ninjas bust in there. They demanded money. They got out their blickies. And Angel tries, to cut them off or whatever. They're telling everybody to get down on the floor. They knock everybody down. Horace starts coughing. And she's like, "Oh, he's sick, he's sick, he's sick." And he says, "Listen, I have some money in the safe. I have some money in the safe." So they tell him to come over, open up the safe. He opens up the safe for them and he crawls over to this chair, still coughing, and goes to sit down in the chair. Next thing you know, he brought up this beast of a thing and blast everybody's ass in the room. Child. It is a wonder that Angel and Kimmy did not get hit in the spray because he lit everybody up in that was standing. Okay? Gone. So then, but then, they're not free and clear because now at this point they have to explain themselves. What is going on? What are you doing? Was you trying to set me up? And so Angel admits, he's like, "It wasn't her, it was me. I tried to, I was gonna rob you because, they basically want to get out of this life." And he said, "Why would you do this? You could have just asked me." He said, "The one thing I can't stand is an effing thief. You could have just asked me." One of the guys who was laid on the ground, his phone rang. Horace told Angel to pick it up and put it on speakerphone. So somebody on the other line says, "Is it done?" He told them to tell him yes. He said, "Good. Meet us at the warehouse." He said, "Okay, cool." Hung up the phone. They have no idea where this warehouse is. They don't even know who that was on the phone. And Kimmy admits that although she was going along with the plan, it wasn't supposed to be anything like this. It was just supposed to be them holding him and then taking the money. He said several times, "Well, just take the money and go. Take the money and go." They were like, "No, no, no, no. We don't want it. We don't want it. It's okay. It's okay." And Kimmy admitted that she was angry at him because she thought that he did not keep his word about Rain. And he said, "Rain, after what I did for her," but she didn't know. And she had to tell him, "I didn't know that part." So he offers again for them to just take the money and go. And she said no, again revealing, "We already owe you hundreds and thousands of dollars. We're not going to take this." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" So finally she blurts out, "Well, Jules is our pimp and you're our boss since you're his boss." So, and they just wanted to get the money so that they can get out of this life and get away from this place. And Horace is he's confused. He's like, "My Jules?" And Kimmy ends up even mentioning the judge that he uses, that Jules uses to hem up all these people that have committed these crimes, that they can bypass the system and then he'll just be in, then they will be indebted to Jules, right? So Horace says, okay, fine. You know what? You never saw me before. You never met me. Get out. So they go to leave. Now back at Mallory's home, she's fresh out of the shower. Calvin comes into her bedroom, y'all, or into her bathroom, actually. Says, basically, he's trying to get it on with her again. And she asks where Roy is. He reveals that Roy is with Alex, the other driver, his driver. And he begins to come on to her. And she keeps threatening to fire him. But she is so weak. And he jumping on her bed. And he was really about to get it on with her until Jules called him and basically said that he has to go. So he got up to leave. And she hugged him. And she said to him in his ear that she is deadly. And that if you betrayed her, basically he was going to pay for that. So moving on. Roy calls Lena. Remember, she's the lawyer representing the people that are suing Beauty and Black, and asks her out for a drink. Now he's with Alex, his driver. Tells Alex, hey, I need to stop at the liquor store before I go to the Moxie to go meet up with Lena. Reluctantly, Alex takes him to this store, right? He gets out, throws up, hits a bump of that sugar, and tells him to go inside and get him some gin. Now Alex is like, sir, I really don't think you need to do that, and you really need to go home. He's like, what did I say? Go inside and give me some gin. So he goes inside, but he calls Jules, Alex, and says, hey, he won't let me take him home. Jules is like, I don't know, I don't care what you need to do, but you need to get his behind back home. Next thing you know, child, Roy took off in the truck. Gone. One thing I noticed about this scene though was that there was a woman in the bed where Jules was. And I don't know who she was. You know who this woman is? I don't remember who she was. I don't remember seeing her face. And she was just laying in the bed. Look, supposedly asleep. Face full of beautiful makeup and everything. Anyway, moving on. So, like I said, Roy took off in the car. Jules calls Mallory to tell her that Roy is, when one off Renegade, is going to go meet this woman at the Moxie, and they make their plan and they move forward. Angel and Kimmy, they are still scared, but they finally were able to drive off, and they realize, or Kimmy realizes finally, the Horace and Jules don't seem to be on the same page. So I don't think they actually are working together for the purposes of keeping them in servitude. I think Horace honestly didn't know what was going on. And then she also asked about, what happened to your guy? Angel doesn't know what happened to Salvo and why he didn't show up. But Rain calls at that point and insists that they come out and see her and visit her right now. Angel thinks it's a setup, but they head out to the hospital anyway. Now, Horace, he's still at the house, sitting there with the unalived bodies all over the floor, sprayed all over the floor. And Jules and Calvin come in. The Horace tells them he needs them to clean this up. Now, Jules is not familiar with this particular house, right? And kept asking him about the woman who lives here. Horace is not giving up any information, but he said everything is fine and you don't have to worry about the woman. Jules picks up the wallet that he saw on the floor from one of the guys and found a card for the safe company, which is the same safe that Horace just opened up for them to take the money. This is a very confusing scene to me. I'm not sure what the significance of that card was. And I don't think we're not going to find out what the significance of that card was until part 2. So Horace then decides to leave and then asks Jules about that judge that Kimmy mentioned and asked if he and Norman are still friends. Now, Roy is meeting with Lena at this Moxie place up for an interview. First question was, how long have you known that this relaxer causes cancer in your, customers? He's trying to come on to her. But my thing is, why is he always trying to sleep with somebody and he can't get your thing don't work, sir? Why are you doing this? Anyway, he tries to then bribe her and offers her a job. Then Mallory shows up. Child, she sits down and she says to him, Roy, let's go. He's like, I'm not going anywhere. He drinking this drink. She sends a text. Next thing you know, everybody in the restaurant scatters. She says, I said, let's go. I'm not going to tell you again. He's like, I'm not going anywhere. She sends another text. He gets a text. He reads it, and then she says, there's 3 men outside waiting. Please don't make them come in. So he gathers his things and he went outside. Meanwhile, she sits there with Lena and she turns around and does the exact same thing. Offers her a job. She's like, listen, I cannot be bought. I'm not fooling with y'all like that. And she says, girl, I see you. And then the other girl says, I see you too. So Mallory's like, okay then, watch me work, and leaves. Kimmy and Angel are at the hospital. They arrive and they find that Rain is VIP at this hospital. She's looking better, she's sounding better, but she's not still quite out of the woods just yet. And they catch up a little, but they're not really telling her. They're telling her in coded language, and she notices. And she's like, what is going on with you? She noticed the blood on Angel's shoes. And Angel's like, come on, let's go. They didn't want to tell her. They didn't want to worry her. The last thing she needs to be worried about is what they're doing anyway. But I think she was afraid because she was like, listen, what y'all doing may affect me. I don't know who's holding me here. I don't know, if my life is in balance because of whatever you're doing or not doing. So she's like, don't worry. It's going to be fine. Angel said, let's go. And Ray mentioned, she said, yeah, I got to find out who that fine ass sugar daddy is who brought me out here. But I'm thinking, like, girl, you don't want to know. Not for real. So Horace, now he's at home. He asks his butler to get him some brandy and wonders, what is that noise? He's hearing an emergency vehicle. Where is that noise coming from? The butler says that there's an emergency vehicle on the private road. And he calls Harold, which is that judge's name, and requests for him. Now he called him in the middle of the night and tells him, hey, I want you to come to my home at 6 a.m. Now, okay, you could be friends, but you just randomly calling somebody, telling them to come and see you at 6 a.m. He said, is that a problem for you? He said, no. I was like, we may have to explore what that relationship was at a later time in part 2. So Roy and Mallory are driving home at this point, and it's no surprise. They're arguing, okay? They literally start physically fighting. She starts kicking him, and he noticed that she is not wearing any panties. This is so random. Like, TP, come on. You have the most random details. Anyway, so she tells Alex to take the private road. And they get to the point where they're on the private road, but they get stopped due to this fire and emergency vehicle that is ahead. She gets out and she notices that the yellow Lambo is on fire. And they ask her, do you know who that is? She said, yeah, that's my brother-in-law's car. Was there somebody in there? The EMT or the firefighter did not tell her what was going on, but then she calls Horace. Actually, she had tried to call Horace in the car, and Roy ended up hanging up. But Horace called her back, and she says, listen, you're going to need to come out to the private road. There's an emergency out here. So I know that what they're thinking, because the yellow Lambo is out there, they're thinking Charles is out here and he may possibly be hurt or unalive because this Lambo is on fire basically and has blown up. But child, I think that Charles is laid up somewhere with Barney. Okay, so then Kimmy and Angel, they pull up at the motel. They pull up and see Bother Somebody and Delinda. Of course, they're yelling out, where the F you been? Okay. So, of course, again, Body accuses her of wanting to take her place and not listening to her. And she said, but I'm going to teach you today. Kimmy says, don't do anything. Here's Body. I already did. Look. Now, I don't know when Delinda left this conversation, But all of a sudden, she pulled up in this truck with this girl in the back, right? She pulls up with Sylvie, who is Kimmy's 16-year-old sister. Remember, I told you that 16-year-old thing was being emphasized by Body and that was going to be important later? That's what she meant. She went and got her sister, Sylvie. And then she went so far as to say, yeah, now she's going to be at my house making me lots and lots of money and doing whatever I tell her to do. Now, finally, it is on. Kimmy goes to shove her. They start fighting. Unfortunately, Body gets the best of her, beating her down to the floor. And I'm like, Angel, jump in, hit the girl, do something. I mean, I know that's maybe not in your way, but in this case, come on, she is knocking her out in the middle of the street. So then next thing you know, Body pulls out a blade, tells Angel to get away from her, but thank God. Meanwhile, Kimmy ran to the car, jumped in the car. She drove that car. Body walked in front of another car and she slammed right into her. Bam! That was the end. That was the finale. And now we have to wait until March of 2025 to see part two. We don't know if Body is surviving or not, but that Body itself did not survive, child. She would have to get that stuff done all over again. I'm tell you one thing, Kimmy messing up the money. So you tell me what you thought of this series. Again, this is Tyler Perry's Beauty in Black. This is episode 7 and 8. I knew this was going to be a little bit longer one, but it was such a really great series. I really enjoyed it. And I hope you will enjoy me. I hope you will join me as I talk on the panel along with my other YouTube friends this Wednesday. We're meeting on Wednesday at I think it's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So join. It'll be me, Monique 69 Ways, VKJTV, the Lawrence Report, Shayna MCD, and I maybe some others. Listen. We're gonna talk about this. Oh my gosh, let me know what you thought of the series. Let me know what your theories are for the series. I think I'm gonna do a whole other video to talk about some unanswered questions as well as some theories for part 2 of this series. But thank you for joining me. I hope you will don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I hope you will join me for the family business that I will be dropping in the next few weeks or so to get ready for Family Business New Orleans. We're going to go through season 5 of Family Business for each episode and get back in the swing of things. Okay, well, thanks again for joining me and have a good one. Bye.